Welcome, brave souls. Have you ever felt that pull to just get away from it all? Escape the endless noise of the city, the constant pressure, and just breathe in some fresh, clean air. That's exactly what Penny and Dean were craving, until it all went wrong. Penny, with her infectious energy, and Dean, her tall fiancé, were a typical couple in their late 20s, but both were completely burnt out by their demanding city lives. Their solution, a camping trip. Not just any camping trip, but a deep dive into the secluded, serene wilderness of the Georgia mountains. They also hit subscribe. They packed their gear, filled the tank, and drove away from the concrete jungle, chasing the promise of peace and quiet. For the first 2 days, their plan was a spectacular success. The forest was their personal paradise. They spent their time hiking along winding trails, skipping stones across crystal-clear streams, and just enjoying each other's company without a single notification to interrupt them. The air was crisp, the scenery was breathtaking, and the only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves and the cheerful chirping of birds. At night, they'd sit by a crackling campfire, gazing up at a sky so full of stars it looked like spilled diamonds. It was perfect, a much-needed reset. They felt their stress melting away with each passing hour, replaced by a deep sense of calm. They thought they had found their utopia, a hidden corner of the world just for them. But as we all know, some hidden corners are hidden for a reason. The third day started just like the others. Another beautiful morning in the mountains. But as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows through the trees, a strange shift occurred. The vibrant sounds of the forest, the constant hum of life they'd grown accustomed to, suddenly vanished. An unnerving, dead silence fell over the woods. It was as if someone had hit a mute button on nature itself. The air grew heavy, still. Dean, needing to answer nature's call, stepped out of the tent. He walked a short distance away, trying to shake off the strange feeling that was creeping up his spine. As he stood there in the encroaching dusk, he heard it, a rustling in the underbrush. It wasn't the sound of a squirrel or a rabbit. This was heavier, more deliberate. He froze, listening intently. The rustling stopped. He waited a moment, heart starting to pound, before deciding it was probably just a deer. But then, a voice cut through the silence, and the blood in his veins turned to ice. "Penny!" it called out. "Penny! Honey! Come on out!" It was his voice, an almost perfect imitation of his own voice, but he hadn't said a word. The sound was disembodied, coming from the direction of the rustling leaves, not from him. A cold dread washed over him as he realized something was trying to lure Penny out of the tent. Without a second thought, Dean quietly, carefully, made his way back to the tent, his mind racing. The mimicry was terrifyingly accurate. He slipped back inside, his face pale. Penny looked up, a question in her eyes. "That wasn't me," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Whatever you just heard, it wasn't me." The confusion on Penny's face instantly turned to fear. The woods were no longer a peaceful sanctuary. They were a trap. Dean's hand instinctively found the handle of their small camping hatchet. Penny grabbed their most powerful flashlight. her knuckles white as she gripped it. Together, they unzipped the tent just enough to peer out. Penny swept the powerful beam of the flashlight across the tree line, frantically searching the darkness. The light cut through the gloom, illuminating trees and bushes, but there was nothing there. Just an empty, silent forest watching them. They zipped the tent shut, the sound unnaturally loud in the suffocating quiet. Sleep was now an impossible dream. The couple huddled together in the center of the tent, every nerve on high alert. The silence was soon broken again, but this time it wasn't a voice. It was a symphony of a nightmare. Eerie, distorted noises surrounded them. Scrapes, clicks, and a low, guttural breathing that seemed to come from all directions at once. It was unlike any animal they had ever heard. The sounds moved, circling their small nylon shelter. Then the voice returned. This time it was right behind them, just on the other side of the thin tent fabric. "Penny," it rasped, the voice now twisted and grotesque, a horrible parody of Dean's. That was it. They couldn't stay. In a synchronized rush of pure adrenaline, they scrambled out of the tent and made a desperate break for their car. They didn't look back, they just ran. Tree branches clawed at their clothes and faces as they sprinted through the darkness, their hearts hammering against their ribs. They fumbled with the car doors, jumped inside, and Dean jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and he slammed the car into drive, tires spinning in the dirt before finding traction. They sped away, leaving their campsite and all their gear behind. As the car careened down the dirt path, the red glow of their taillights illuminated the clearing they had just fled, and that's when they saw it. For just a fleeting second, caught in the crimson light, was the source of their terror. It was huge, easily 7 feet tall, standing where their tent had been. It had the muscular torso of a man, but its legs were bent backward like a goat's, covered in coarse fur. Its head was the horrific visage of a goat, but its eyes glowed with a malevolent, burning red light. The image was seared into their minds as they raced away from the mountains. They didn't slow down, didn't even breathe, until the dirt road finally met paved asphalt. They thought they were safe. But just as a wave of relief began to wash over them, the car sputtered. The engine coughed, choked, and then died completely, leaving them stranded in the middle of a dark, empty road. The silence of the night rushed back in, now more menacing than ever. Panic set in again. They abandoned the car and ran. They didn't know where they were going. They just ran towards a faint glow they could see in the distance. That glow turned out to be a beacon of hope, a 24-hour diner. They burst through the door, breathless and terrified, their wild eyes and disheveled appearance drawing stares from the few late-night patrons. They collapsed into a booth, and through gasps and sobs, they recounted their horrifying experience to the weary-looking waitress. The older woman listened patiently, her expression not one of surprise, but of grim understanding. When they described the creature, she just nodded slowly. "You, too, weren't the first," she said, her voice low, "and you won't be the last. You've met the Goatman." She told them the local legend, a story passed down through generations, of a monstrous creature that stalked the Georgia mountains. A terrifying hybrid of man and goat that lured unsuspecting campers to their doom. The legend they had probably dismissed as a silly campfire story was real. The next morning, Fueled by coffee and a desperate need for validation, they convinced a pair of skeptical park rangers to escort them back to their abandoned campsite. The rangers clearly thought they were dealing with a prank or an overactive imagination, but their skepticism vanished the moment they saw the sight. The tent was shredded, ripped to ribbons. Their equipment was smashed and scattered across the clearing, and deep, non-human tracks were pressed into the soft earth all around. The campsite wasn't just trashed, it was annihilated. The rangers stood in stunned silence, their faces pale. Penny and Dean finally had their proof. They were believers, and now, so were the rangers. So what do you think? Is the Goatman lurking out there in the woods? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Talees from the dark corners of the world. The Are You Afraid of the Dark reviews or our tours of haunted places. Until next time, stay curious.